Oh, greetings and welcome to this morning of the 17th of July 2024, still the third decade of the 21st century. I always open with that to sort of highlight the fact that we are indeed in the third decade of the 21st century, to sort of bring forth the concept of where people had thought we would be and what we'd be discussing and dealing with as a society versus where we actually are. If you're also new to my channel, I like to read, react, and respond. As far as where I've been, so first and foremost, my wife and I have been on a bit of a fitness challenge. If you have me on Facebook or Instagram, you can see me over there. I don't hide who I am. I'm just Daniel P. Blackwell. Dox me, whatever. I'm just me. So we've been on a little bit of a fitness journey and a diet journey and a health and wellness journey. At the beginning of the year, I started out at 265 pounds. I am down to 199 for the third day in a row. So I've lost 66 pounds in total. About 2 weeks ago, well, technically 3 weeks this week, I convinced my wife to start a 6-week challenge. Beyond that, we've just had some other stuff going on, which, as most of you probably know, life can sometimes get in the way. So I do like, when I do work on this channel, I try to give it the necessary diligence it deserves when I can, and if I can't, then I don't. So without further ado, I'm going to try to get through the read, react, and responses, and if I can, I'll try to post some original thought over recent events, because there are some recent events, or I'll just close this and then I'll do a separate recent events video. So Michael Sudsy Sutherland, okay, so what is the Geekier channel? I'm curious. I responded to you in writing, J Vegas Nerds Creations and Designs, also known as J Vegas Nerds C&D. Hopefully you're able to find it and post some information that I can react and respond to. Frank, I'm pretty sure it's Frank, FJ7, I believe. Hey Daniel, thanks for the reply to my earlier comment about Iraq. Glad to get your perspective. Watched some of the beginning of this video, and you make the point to Andra that some white people fulfill stereotypes like Karen, and I agree. I think things like Karen are an example of jokes at white people's expense entering the mainstream cultural zeitgeist. Like jokes at minorities' expense had always been a thing, and I've definitely heard them all living in a mixed race area. Things like using Dequarius or Shaniqua for jokes at black people's expense. Karen is just part and parcel of these kinds of racist jokes. Also, are you into sci-fi? Yes. I saw your comment, something related to Firefly earlier, and dude, I love that show and sci-fi in general. Playing through Mass Effect 2 for the second time, and am reminded of how epic the sci-fi experience is. So I'm not a big gamer. The moment the video games required all of this, I tapped out. When I was able to do just that, I was good. I think I got as far as Super Nintendo and Genesis, but anything more complicated than that, I had to tap out. My apologies there. It's just not in my wheelhouse. Absolutely huge fan of Firefly, Supernatural, and a handful of other properties that I love to geek out about on the other channel, J Vegas Nerds Creations and Designs, also known as J Vegas Nerds C&D. No, you're right. So I grew up in Chicago and the greater Chicagoland area, where we were very, very mixed, up to and including white people often segregated themselves based on their own interpersonal ethnicities, like German or Polish or Italian or Irish or other forms of Eastern European, like Czechoslovakian, Yugoslavian, Bohemian for that matter. I know what you're saying, and we had interpersonal jokes for those different ethnicities. But I do remember growing up in the greater Chicagoland area, where pretty much everybody was, for the most part, a target, so to speak, within reason. I want to say, at least for my part, growing up a Gen Xer born in '76, we understood that when you were attacking somebody by their skin color, even in a sarcastic manner, while the joke may have been harmless, it was still relatively insensitive based on the way certain people were treated just because of their appearance, not because of their country of origin. White people were treated unfairly because of their country of origin, but at some point they sort of bonded together over being white and Christian, and they discriminated against people that were non-white. But you're not wrong. the Karen, the Skylers, the Brads, I mean, they do represent the epitome of what I would call white stereotypes. Let me see your manager. I mean, these things exist with reason. They don't exist in a bubble without reason. Andra responded, I was raised that it is not okay to make those kind of jokes at all based on skin color specifically. I grew up in the 90s. I was already super diverse. It was already super diverse, and those kinds of jokes were never okay. Starting them up again in recent years to me is a sign that we're declining again as a society. I'm aware the 60s and 70s existed, but we had progressed past the stereotypes, and I'm not okay with sliding backwards. This has been an increasing problem in the past decade or so. All of a sudden it is okay to be racist again. That's BS. It was never okay and is still not okay. Andra, my only comment on that is this. As somebody who was alive and well in the 90s, you may not remember what felt like the second coming of the Black Pride movement. So in the late 60s and early 70s, you had the Black Panthers and Black Power and Black Pride, and obviously it came from somewhere, and it had reason and it had foundation and justification. Even if not everybody agreed or understood, the people that partook did. Again, in the 90s, on the heels of the Rodney King verdict, we also saw another resurgence of Black pride, Black influence, you know, just all of the above. I mean, I remember being a teenager in high school from 90 to 94, you know, clothing that said it's a black thang. You just wouldn't understand. References to Africa and a lot of primary colors, and, you know, black music was very, very prevalent and popular, whether it was rap, hip-hop, R&B, you name it. I mean, it was all over the stations that would play top 40. I mean, it was just mainstream at the time. And then, you know, things ebb and flow as they always do. But sometimes when they come back at a level that's just kind of unbelievable. Like right now, we're going through a phase where it seems like the popular thing to do is white shame, white guilt, basically make white people feel horrific for their skin color. Not because of what happened in the past, but because of what happened in the past. I was born in 76. I'm not responsible for anything. I'm not responsible for anything that took place prior to the Civil Rights Act of 64 or the Voting Act of 65. I got nothing to do with that. I'm only responsible for me, myself, and I, and my family, and anybody else I've affected through my own actions. All right? So, you know, trying to label me KKK and racist and bigot is like trying to blame an 8-year-old Japanese girl for Pearl Harbor. All right? But we have a collective group of people that think that this is okay, this is normal, this is acceptable, this is the way it should be. To include, it's going as far as we have an equal and opposite group of people that are trying to find new ways to categorize and label themselves, which I don't understand, in order to make themselves somehow more marginalized, therefore they're worth more, their social credibility is worth more. I don't get it. So you basically see a targeted attack on Caucasianism, just being white, and heterosexuality and males. So my concern is, at some point, you keep doing this, you keep saying this, you keep accusing, you keep treating and mistreating. What do you expect to be the response? You're going to basically create prison rules outside the prison, where white people and brown people and black people and yellow people and red people have to segregate because everybody's doing this. And we're basically forming prison gangs based on skin color on the outside of the prison. And then whatever happens as a result of that, I find that to be alarming. Okay, Andra, your next original post, which is in typical fashion, long. This was a long one due to the amount of reading I had to do, but if it helps even just one person feel like they've been heard, to feel like they exist, to be acknowledged, then it was worth it. This feel like it was directed at me because I'm the long-winded one. I already know I exist. Really, I promise I do. I'm annoyed, not depressed, and I've never been into the depression spectrum at all. Cool. But since I doubt I can convince anyone of that fact effectively, let's try something different. I will feel the absolute most seen and validated and all that stuff if I can get help with my startup. I love your passion. I absolutely promise that I will. See, it may not make sense to yourself or the shrinks who teach you guys these steps you typically all want to go through, but you're addressing the wrong end of the problem. I am passionate about a lot of stuff. That does not mean I'm sad, though. I don't know that I ever accused you of that, but if I did, sorry. It's been a few weeks. Give me a break. My nose is itching, as it always does. I'm frustrated by certain things, but those things are solvable. The faster I can solve them, the faster my negative feelings will go poof. I get that. That I do get. Okay, I understand that the current trend is towards sharing one's feelings a lot, but to me it's coming across more like someone telling me to talk about my feels while I'm literally drowning. It's totally misplaced. It's not that I don't have feelings or feel like I'm unworthy or having them. It's that it feels very wrong for people to ask me to waste too much time of them when it's not going to make my situation better. A good term would be suffering porn. It feels to me, in my specific situation, a bit like suffering porn or poverty porn. I might get the reference. Not a big porn buff, if that shocks you, but okay. For those who are unfamiliar in media, poverty porn is, oh, thank you for the explanation. Poverty porn is used in media through visually miserable and disturbing images that aim to trigger some sort of emotion amongst its audience. It is commonly thought, however, that to expose one's misery publicly through images, interviews, and other means is an impermissible invasion of privacy. In this case, it's not really a violation of privacy because I am sharing myself, but the rest of it is still kind of valid. Okay, I feel worse talking about my feelings than not. Some psych book says I should feel better. I know, I read them, but it's not that kind of situation, and I don't actually feel better. In general, I don't share the feelings type of information, and currently that preference has not changed. Real quick, I'm going to continue reading this, but maybe there's a disconnect. So when I talk about people feeling heard, people being recognized, so to speak, I've commented a lot on larger channels: Tim Pool, Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, Dinesh D'Souza, Dave Rubin, even Larry Elder. And, you know, it just gets drowned out in the white noise. To include when you ask a question that, you know, God forbid you might actually want an answer, but because you're not paying for the service and you're not in the paywall, you're not doing a super chat or something like that, you get ignored. And a part of me understands these people are making a living. I'm not making a living off of this. I got up early this morning so that I can get this done before I go do some morning PT and head to work. I emailed Eric in May. It's July. Would it be easier to just hook me up with this fantastic business leadership community than having me wait like 1.5 months-ish? I'm starting to think he did not mean what he said. So that's one more guy in the list who didn't mean what he said. Andra, the only thing I can think of right now is, having only talked to the guy once and not really having what I would call a relationship with the gentleman, is that he may be focused on one particular thing right now, and maybe your thing isn't in his sphere right now. It's not in his wheelhouse. Not to say that it couldn't be, but Andra, depending on your age, I want to try to share with you something that you might not be able to wrap your head around. I'm in my late 40s. I'm closer to 50 than I am 45. All right? Obviously, if I was born in 76, you could do the math. I'm 48. A year goes by a lot quicker than it used to. You say a month and a half. For all I know, I've been off of YouTube for a month and a half, and all I did was blink. So you may not appreciate it now, but for some of us of a certain age, 4 to 6 weeks can go by like a sneeze. And we find ourselves sitting to go, what the hell just happened? Where the hell did all the time go? If you're not there yet, cherish that. Live it, love it, just embrace it. Because you may get to the point where you're like us, and it's like, what the fuck just happened in the last year? Okay. Again, this would be very disappointing. It now seems like everyone is kind of just lying. I try not to be paranoid, but if you went to buy jeans and the company delayed replying for 2 months, you might get suspicious too, especially if it keeps happening at different locations and with different people. I need practical advice. If you'd like, you can try answering my question. Does the Pentagon check every single patent application prior to allowing it, or is that just for certain categories, like the COVID stuff? One of the agents told me that I need to wait for Pentagon to go through their checks for my first application, but I don't know if that will keep happening every time I file for a patent or when it will happen. I don't know what the conditions are. All right, so the short answer is this. The unfortunate truth is, in federally funded governmental work, there is a tremendous amount of bureaucracy. The bureaucracy exists with pure intentions, but often muddies the water terribly. So what you need to think of it as a series of checks and balances that were created and more than likely continuously get added to as elected officials and elected leaders change. And these checks and balances were first and foremost meant to try and prevent, what's the word I'm looking for? Scratch my back type of thing. Not narcissism, but nepotism. Trying to prevent nepotism. So what may actually be happening at a pace you disagree with is your application is moving through the bureaucratic channels, just not at a pace you can agree with because of how many people have to put their stamp of approval on it so that they can claim there's been zero corruption and zero nepotism. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying that's one plausible answer. No long replies this week. It's been too busy and I haven't actually had time to go through all of the video, but I felt wrong not to reply at least a little bit. Still, my primary need is the business stuff. Without that, nothing will get better, and I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea and think I'm just talking to you for personal attention. I do need to gain attention, but it needs to be directed in the right domain. Primarily, I don't want to be doing the suffering porn route. I pride myself in never going that route, no matter what. Please try to understand my position and not rely too much on the psych books. I'm pretty sure I read a lot more of them at some point. I recognize the speech pattern. It just feels a little misplaced in this case. That's why I tend to get irritable when people do the exaggerated sympathy talk. Jocko tried it and I got irritated at him too. I am sure it's because someone trained you guys to talk a certain way, but what I need most of all is honesty and reliability. Without that, everything feels wrong. I'm not trying to get personal attention to any personal tragedy, perceived or real, in order to feel seen. I need to get your attention so you can help me problem solve for the issues I cannot resolve on my own. On some level, I resent that I need someone else's help. I am typically frustrated when they misunderstand the type of help I'm asking for. That I get. What I will tell you is this, depending on how long I've been gone, I'm sure I can go back and check the date of the video. I did leave messages. I did. I got a buddy that works in a certain capacity. I got another buddy that works in a different capacity. And because I don't have their permission to discuss it, I won't. But let's just say, from what you had told me, you're in their sphere of influence. But they haven't gotten back to me yet. And I can only chalk it up to the fact that we're at that age where, like I said, time goes by at a much faster pace. And, you know, I don't know how many times I tell my wife, remind me to do this, remind me to do this. 6 weeks later, hey, did I do this? No, shit. Like, I've been trying to do this video for a while now, and I keep forgetting because something else gets in the way. Like, I've got a mandatory cutoff in 1 hour if I'm not done with all of this in 1 hour. If this is a crossroads, one road will help me move forward and one will keep me stuck in the shit. While people keep trying to take pics of my stuck in the shit, it's like everyone is those silly tourists annoying the grizzly bear in Banff, and I'm the grizzly. The irritation is coming from people saying they want to help and not doing any of the actual helping. It comes from people thinking they know better than me about situations they were not there for, and then trying to make my situation fit the preconceived notions in their minds. Andrea, if you haven't done so, you can email me at deltapapabravo0369@gmail, also known as dpb0369@gmail. My one buddy, once he gets a hold of me, when his time frees up, if you have something to propose and he sees merit in it, he will contact you. I promise you that. But he's a lot like me, and we can get easily distracted by shiny squirrels. I'm just giving you a heads up. Someone should have really thought how to actually pay attention to the different scenarios which are actually happening, and not just to assume when the person you're trying to help keeps saying, I need A, and everyone just ignores them and keeps offering X instead. That's not helping. It's like the patient presenting with a swollen ankle and the doctor giving them an eye exam. It doesn't really make sense. I hope you can understand that analogy. I do, and I still want to comment, but I want to finish your paragraph. I tried to not sound irritated, and I don't want to come across as unappreciative, but I am just not the type of victim you're describing. They do exist, but it's not me, and it's never been me either. The imagery does not fit. I have my own way of dealing with challenges, and it works way better than all the talk therapy combined. There are times when people really need to just vent. It is very true. I'm in problem solving mode though. None of these conversations would be happening if I wasn't trying to problem solve. What makes me happy is helping people and making life better. That's my drive and my happy place. There is time enough to discuss feelings after the work is done and I'm relaxed and have nothing else more urgent to do, and then we can all get philosophical, but the tone would be very different. And no amount of talking about how I feel on various topics will ever make me feel better or more fulfilled than getting my projects off the ground. I know what makes me tick properly, and if I'm all happy and content, I won't be writing more emotional messages which make people feel like I need to be seen and validated. It addresses the root cause, you see. Not mad, just trying to get people to see another perspective. I was in the same classes as the psych major who taught you guys how to therapy speak, and I was very good at them, but I also had other methods than the ones from 50 years ago. I do appreciate you thinking that much higher of me than what is reality. I was never special ops, special forces, special, although if you ask my wife, I'm special, but I wasn't special military. So I didn't get any kind of extra training. I did one mission with a pre-deployment workup where we got a little bit of extra training to include facial expressions, body language. That shit was cool. But no, not like, say, the SEALs or MARSOC or Green Berets or whatnot. I don't get overly educated in psychobabble. What I have noticed in life is some people are a little bit more intuitive. Some people are just way, way better at dealing with other people. And that's what separates them from others. I myself am not. I'm not one of these gifted individuals where I can read people and I know what to say it, how to present it, when to say it, and when to present it. I'm just not. I could try to repeat the same thing somebody else just did and not have the same results because I'm not them. I don't have their je ne sais quoi. All right? And I've had to recognize this after walking the earth for about 48 years. But no, I don't have any extracurricular training on psychobabble. What else do we got here? You're a champ for actually going through everything, and I will go through the video too. I really thought you were going to give up. I figured I finally wrote enough to make you tap out, so to speak. No. You comment. I read, react, and respond. Otherwise, I'd have no integrity, and I'd be lying. The racial stereotypes bothered me more that week because I had just gotten done talking on another thread where someone was making wild accusations regarding another person and constantly bringing up that it was a white lady in a very negative racial way. None of the people involved already knew the person, but that didn't stop them from randomly disparaging someone they never met and bringing up the race thing multiple times. It was especially annoying because the people doing it were usually the same ones complaining about racism being directed at them. So the hypocrisy was just super evident. It's a bad trend, it's getting normalized, and it should not be. An eye for an eye never has a happy ending. Some dude was a racist to you 20 years ago, and now you feel entitled to be all racist towards people you never even met. It's very dumb. True, Andra, but what I will say is, unfortunately, I think for a lot of us, you have these feelings, these emotions, these traits that sometimes just need a catalyst. So, yeah, in that instance, somebody being racist to them 20 years ago was the additional ingredient they needed to, you know, set them on their merry way of being exactly who they are. And to your point, if I'm getting your point correctly, racism is not a one-way street. It's not white people, just blanket white people, regardless of their individual ethnicity, versus non-white people. Non-white people can absolutely be racist and tend to be the most racist people currently in America because that they think that they are exempt from being racist because they're not white, because in America, racism is strictly white-based, and it's not. Racism is multi-directional. Anybody can be racist. And I think what you're seeing in the current trend right now is a hyperfixation on racism towards white people, because we're creating this weird invisible currency on you not being white, you not being heterosexual, you not being male, whatever the case may be. So the target demographic of all evil is white heterosexual males, with a close second being white heterosexual females. And then probably somewhere in the third category is just heterosexuals in general. So I don't get it. I don't understand, which is why I say, welcome to the third decade of the 21st century. This is the shit we're dealing with. Men can lactate and give birth. Since when? Since when? I was not born with a uterus. You can cut it in half, turn it outside in. Doesn't make me a uterus. It just makes my outie an innie. I don't know if that guy I knew ever made it through college. I was told later he dropped out, but while I knew him, he had gotten into college and was optimistic. I was happy for him because when I first met him, he didn't think he could do it. And then he ended up getting in. It was just a little happy ending there. I can't really talk about this too much. Sorry, the people who told me about him later may have been just lying. Don't know. I lost track a long time ago. I'm guessing we discussed this about somebody. My apologies if I can't remember. 1433, not a Jewish kid. A guy who thought everyone with European ancestry was guilty of the Nazi war crimes. I was from one of the areas that literally had nothing to do with it, and he was trying to prove everyone had collaborators, thus we were all scum, basically, and had profited from genocide and are thus evil by association today. He looked pretty white to me, though, so from a logical point of view, he was just out to make people feel bad about their ancestry for no reason. In my case, it doesn't really work, but he was surprised that I would not immediately go, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you're enlightening me as to my evil white supremacy historical roots." I got none. I know my history. No matter how demented his argument or how far back he wants to go in history to find an excuse to act like a jerk today, he still got none. Nowadays, it doesn't matter because they're calling everyone a potential white supremacist anyways, regardless of ancestry or genetics. Back then, it was a new trend and unsettling. He claimed that he had some distant relatives who came from European gypsy ancestry. Right here, Bohemians, baby, full-blown gypsies. But anyone can claim anything, and again, yes, they were bad guys in Europe, but there were bad guys in Europe, but that's why we fought a war against them. My family tree was against that, so yeah. I can still win the argument, but it's unsettling that everyone is trying to make the argument at all. They're just mentally unstable people, in my opinion. Yeah. 1534. You don't have to be sorry you answered honestly to the question. Part of me is super jealous. I have no clue what it's like to answer 100% honestly at all. Like just saying whatever crosses your brain at the time with no filter at all. Again, part of me is actually jealous. Damn it! Who's calling? Okay. Not sure where I left off. Don't have to be sorry. I'm actually jealous, but I can count on one hand all the times I actually did that, and it always ended up blowing in my face. They're not asking. So as far as being honest, that's purely selfish. I can't make that up. I can't lie. That is purely being selfish, and at the same time being selfish, accepting any and all consequences. But on the flip side, at least you're not hiding anything, and people know exactly who you are and where they stand, as long as you're okay with the consequences. What else? Oh, this one's also long. Okay, so a bunch of dudes watching 50 Shades of Grey is not reason enough for me to have to deal with their BS comments about it for the next 2 to 3 months. I ain't your doll. You can't dress me. You can't keep commenting on my appearance. You need to stop. That's a no. Not even if a supposedly sexy movie is in theaters this month. Your preferences are yours. Keep them to yourself unless we're dating, and then you can definitely bring them up, but within reason. And you never get to publicly share private conversations. I am typically slightly more open with conversation if someone is trying to date me. That's not permission to go behind my back, though, and definitely not in a workplace environment. You don't have to agree with me. No one has to agree with me, but you do need to respect my request. You have to respect my wishes so that it does not affect the rest of the workplace. It's not that complicated. Don't try to bring the rest of the workplace into our relationship at any stage. Even if you're trying to get to know me and it's the beginning stage and we're not 100% a couple yet, everyone typically gets that. Also, sometimes the answer is no, and you don't get to try your moves on me forever. If I told you no once privately and you keep insisting, I will tell you no publicly. If we need to take this into HR, we can go. Or you can get the hint. I try to be nice and not hurt anyone's feelings. I do hate it when people take that niceness for an invitation to maneuver and try again tomorrow. I'm very clear, and no one should need to be that clear with any guy. I'll make you a poster with no if you want me to, like I'm clear. They're pretending they don't get it because they'll literally do anything for attention. Anything except treat other people, especially women, with respect. That is, lying is fine, respecting is too much. Yes, I know it is not all men, but all men need to understand that there are workplaces which encourage this, and then it does sometimes turn into all men at that workplace, or most. I personally have nothing to do with Me Too. Don't pull that stuff on me. So that's why I don't feel sorry for these types of dudes usually, because if I did feel sorry for them even in that instance and showed that they'd immediately try to turn that into a date. Their feelings are not actual feelings. They just think that if they make a feeling face for 5 seconds, you'll change your mind and know they have a chance at getting into your pants again. They're like those silly pooches at the dog park trying to get with the bench and the human legs and the random rocks and everything in sight. They just don't get life, and at some point you need to cut them off. I try my best to make it mutual so they don't react too negatively. I really do. I'm being polite. They just don't like taking no for an answer. They see it as a game, and if not scoring, they're losing. I'm not a person at them. They don't care to get to know me or are looking for a long-term marriage type relationship, and I have to triage. It's just life. I'm female. We triage male attention. It's just how it is. There's no need to take it personally. We're not a good fit. Just move on. Same goes for any married guys trying to get attention from co-workers and interns because they're not happy at home. They can grow a spine and divorce, but most of them just want endless attention from anyone all the time. They don't give a shit. It's inappropriate. It's never going to happen, and I would prefer not to have it constantly to deal with their BS. This is most cases, but none of this has anything to do with the situation you're describing, though. Your situation is rare. I'm sorry that it happened. Most of the cases are not like yours. They're the above, purely by virtue of statistics. Most people are straight. Most men like pursuing women. Some don't like taking no for an answer. Sometimes it's no. I only date exclusively. It's always serious. I'm not interested in anything else, and I find it bothersome when people try to convince me otherwise. Interesting point. Here's what I can tell you, whether you choose to believe it or not. I was horrible at the dating game. And then again, maybe I wasn't. I was a lot like you. I was more like a serial monogamist chasing down monogamy, but that wasn't always the case. Have I had flings and one-night stands? Of course. Was I always very grateful? Of course. Was I stuck in the friend zone for an extremely long period of time? Yes. Did I learn a lot? Yes. Was I able to capitalize on it? Yes. Does that make me a pig? I don't know. Do I care? No, because one thing I've learned, and maybe this is a bit too graphic for some, but if you don't like it, change the channel. Warning, getting a little graphic here. By virtue of being in the friend zone, by virtue of being stuck in the friend zone, I got to hear certain things about where men fail in the bedroom. And because our finish is pretty guaranteed, with enough friction and the right mood lighting and whatever else, our finish is pretty much guaranteed, and we can't fake it. There's there it is, we're done. You can see the evidence. Women, on the other hand, a little bit different. So on the rare occasion I got to be intimate with somebody, whether that led to more occasions, several occasions, long-term dating, whatever, I at least wanted to demonstrate my gratitude by performing, making sure that she got to the top of the mountain before I did. So I had this mantra, she before me. Because also what I learned from being in the friend zone, whether I was the thickest, the thinnest, the longest, or the shortest, it didn't matter. Once she got to the top of the mountain, I didn't matter. If I kept her at the top of the mountain and got to take care of myself, it didn't matter. As far as approaching women, as far as chasing women, as far as all that, I sucked. I was not that good. I did not have game. Basically, any woman I was ever involved with had to come to me because I didn't know how to do that. I was very, very fortunate that my wife basically picked me up. I mean, I proposed, but, you know, I was very fortunate that my wife pursued me. Thank God. She is way prettier than I deserve. The rest of your stuff, I understand from the male perspective, and I understand other guys that I've been around, but it's not something I understand as a regular dude, because like, when I go to work, I'm just there to work. I just want to work. I don't care. But I do get the other side of it too, where everybody wants attention. Everybody wants to feel desired. Everybody wants to feel something. I at least get that. All right, Andrew, what else you got? I agree on the tribalism points. I just never seen it with virulent before. See it that virulent before. Most of the time, I just wanted him to ignore it. I never got bullied in high school or college. Usually, I really am good at moving between groups. It also keeps happening, and I wish people would kind of get on top of it and stop letting them get to you or diffuse the situation or just stop talking to the psychos. Like, you don't have to try to relate to psychos, just smile and wave. 2840, duty. That was an actual scene. Oh my God, I almost fainted, laughing my ass off. I'm still in awe at what you all get away with, behavior-wise. I can't believe you did not instantly get fired. We live in completely different worlds. I'm not saying my world does not include people who would think like you, but none of them would have survived with their jobs intact. We get fired for giving the wrong vibes. I don't even know how to feel. I'm pretty sure I'm just in awe and a little bit jealous. Now I don't know what you're talking about. Hang on, let me see if I can figure that one out. I'm gonna hit pause. Okay, yeah, that happened. That happened. Ordinarily, no, I wouldn't have gotten away with it, but like I said, my manager was married to a special forces operator, so, you know, she had a little bit of empathy for me. When I got fired, I almost went homeless virtually overnight. I barely found another place to move into. I had nothing, only college debts. It was my 20s. I couldn't afford food. It was bad. I also had no social network in that area, so no one to help. My case was not military connected. I do like the idea of rape kits, but most places do have access to that, and that's a more extreme situation. I was talking more harassment. I do think we need help with making rape kits more accessible, and that might need a political initiative and law enforcement to agree to use them. Everyone should have access to this in general. In all workplaces, they should be like pregnancy tests, in my opinion, because oftentimes that type of evidence degrades fairly fast, so they should be treated like the morning after pill, where timing is very important, and be made available everywhere. It's part of the proof. It's 100%. It's not 100%, but having that evidence versus not having it makes a difference to the victim's ability to prove a crime may have occurred. Interesting point. Give me a second here. The rape thing is completely lost on me. It's not a concept I understand. I can understand being so sexually frustrated and so sexually built up that you need that release, and unfortunately, I can't speak for women because not a woman. But again, trigger warning, I'm about to get graphic here, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, masturbation. Oh my God, masturbation. I can be with anybody, any way I want, in any situation I want. I just close my lip and bite my lip. I just close my eyes and bite my lips. Sorry, little Green Day reference there. And boom, my favorite place is the shower because the jellyfish go down the drain. I mean, people can think whatever they want to think, like, oh, masturbation, that's so taboo, I have the real sex or whatever. Well, I think ultimately what happens is there's something wrong. There's something wrong with the thought process of anybody who commits to rape. I also disagree with the cry wolf syndrome, and I also disagree with the fucked up role-playing scenarios that people get into, so there's plausible deniability. So like if the girl has a Coyote Ugly moment, she can claim plausible deniability. Or the guy can be like, oh, I thought it was role play, so I kept going. No. Every one of my encounters, I ensured 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt I had consent. Up to and including, I didn't put the sausage in the bun. Because there was no... Look, while I may have appreciated the opportunity to be intimate, still have no idea where this is going. All right, and I've heard way too many horror stories. That was one benefit of the military, is apparently there was a horrific trend of pulling the coyote ugly and claiming rape, because one of the sad things is when we're single, we live in the barracks, and sometimes we shack up with one or two other dudes. And two people, you know, consenting adults, commit to something. Girl wakes up and there's a guy on the top bunk, there's a guy in another bunk, and she's like, what the hell just happened? I can understand the emotional shock, but that doesn't mean you didn't consent. So I got to hear a lot of horror stories during my younger years in the military that when the time did come, and trust me, it came much later in life, I was not a fast mover. I overly ensured that I had consent. All right, what else we got, Andra? Subtly clarification for Crenshaw, medical health issues, psychedelic stuff, science stuff in general, basically, not inserting robot eyes into his brains. I just basically comment on the science stuff he's working on actively, or which may inform his policies and stances in the future. He seems to kind of answer very rarely, if at all, and usually he wants to forge ahead with the project and not worry about the risks I'm bringing up. He has the talking points and experts which say what he wants them to say lined up, and that's all that he cares about. Anyway, don't want to make this into another 1.5 hour episode, so I'll stop. I'm already at over 40 minutes. Well, crap. Okay. 1 hour, 1 minute, and 57 seconds. My passion for my topics. Yeah, it's less passion and more extreme frustration and sometimes fear. I'm afraid of what I'm seeing, and I'm trying to get help. When I first tried to communicate with Jocko's group, it was super low-key and low-emotion topics. My language is very low energy. I'll give him some credit. In his own very roundabout way, he did notice some of my comments. He also said he used to do comms for the military. He has some technology knowledge. He also has programmer friends. He can help me with the tech stuff if he would ever decide, in his infinite generosity, to get off his ass and help. He's just afraid of the conversation. Sometimes biting at people with a little more bitey tone is enough to wake them up. I just inserted more emotion into my tone to try to get the urgency across, because he seems asleep most of the time. And I also assume literally nothing moves at that company without his go-ahead. Thus, I needed to both get his attention to the problem I'm trying to discuss, and not me personally, and get him to understand it is urgent, because otherwise he just kind of zombies out for years. I'm surprised he has not grown moss by now. Every time I try to get attention to the problem I'm trying to discuss, he and everyone else around him acts like I want his personal attention from me, like I just need him to manage my feelings or something. Look at the words. What do the words say? I don't give a damn about your personal attention to me personally, genius. You're a G.I. Joe figure. I just need you to G.I. Joe the issue I'm trying to talk to you about. This is literally the worst time for you to remember you're technically human. Back to the robot mode, please. It's like they all have ADHD. Me. Look at this issue. Can you help me fix it? Them. Tell us more about how you feel and think and who you are. Me. No, not here to socialize. Here to talk about problem. Look at the problem. Them. Let's spend the next 5 years trying to drive you nuts by talking about everything except the one reason why you're here. Me. Arg. Problem, not me. You're gonna lose wars, you fools. Random bystanders. Maybe you just put too much emotion into the arg part. Me. Trust me, the arg was the last thing on that list, and that ain't it. Them. We just have different methods of handling stuff. Does not make us wrong. Me. I know you do. You deserve you dense bastards. There's stuff practically tailored to fuck up your different methods. That's why I am here. Can we please just talk about the problem now? Them. You seem tense. Let's patronize you about the feelings now. We'll mansplain them back to you, and then that should make you feel better. This is funny. Thank you. Me, I twitch. I'm just surrounded by idiots, aren't I? If I'm noticing repetitive cyber activity around his profile, my thinking is someone is trying to target the business or the people working there in some way. I wanted to fix it because, one, it is stopping me from trying to access his website and talk about the business stuff, and two, it is very annoying, and three, it may translate into a real world targeting. I was happy to just use the podcast to zombie out while doing other stuff. If crap did not keep going wrong with it, I would not have brought up anything. I had not even thought to try to contact them when stuff first started going wrong. I was a totally passive listener. The business looked kind of cool, but lots of things looked cool in the beginning. I was listening to it to try to decide if I should reach out, if maybe it was a good idea or maybe not so much. My attachment to the podcast was positive in the beginning. I didn't have any negative feelings at all. There have been businesses for whom there were cyber attacks and then followed up by very real-world consequences. To me, that's what it looked like. Like the cyber stuff is prologue maybe to more serious attacks. Most of the time, they do seem to be serious about security sometimes. Like they keep certain training a little bit more secret and only give the location to people who signed up. They're not always 100% bad at it, but it's partial. They're partially securing it, and I wanted to talk to them about the rest of the stuff. Also, he does say sometimes that he would be interested and then randomly changes his mind. Also, he is inappropriately paranoid. He should be way more afraid of the terrorist sympathizers than of having a conversation about improving security with me. Like, seriously, what the hell? They're just frustrating people. Yeah, Andra, I don't have any kind of relationship or any kind of inside track to Jocko, so I don't really have anything to offer there. But I do understand if you have information, if you have knowledge, if you have facts and whatnot, and nobody seems to want to listen because your profile's not big enough, that's a damn shame. And it's going to really, really suck if you have to be sitting there in the position of I told you so, and because you were the first one to bring light to it, that's the only way you get attention. I can only speak in those terms because you've been very non-specific with me for your own reasons, and I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying you've been non-specific. But if you want to reach out to me via email, I can see what else I can do, but I make no promises because I feel like your integrity is attached to a promise, so I don't want to make any promises I can't keep. All I can promise is I'll try. With that being said, at 47, almost 48 minutes in, if I can take the last 10 to 15 minutes to try to cover something else here. So, most recently, we had an assassination attempt by a 20-year-old male with an AR-15 rifle from 150 yards out on former president, GOP presidential candidate, Donald Trump. Plenty of people are commenting on the security failures. Plenty of people are commenting on all the failures. All I will say is this. While I may not be 100% in line with everything Steven Crowder says, Steven Crowder put together a montage, and what I will do is post a link in the description to his video. In said montage, he has a collection of media personalities, political personalities, and celebrities using violent rhetoric, temperature increasing rhetoric, up to and including outright calling Donald Trump a Nazi, Hitler, evil, a dictator, as well as so many other things. This is to include the current president, Joe Biden, and his vice president, Kamala Harris, as well as other elected leaders within the Democratic Party. That being said, first and foremost, like Steven Crowder commented, if we are to believe that Hitler is a singular figure that can embody all that we consider evil, and you had the opportunity to take out Hitler, what concerned citizen wouldn't take that opportunity? Here's a young 20-year-old male that I don't know much about. I don't know his political persuasions. I don't know his sexual orientation. I don't know his ideologies or his faith. I don't know where he's going to college, if he's going to college, what he's studying, what kind of professors he's been exposed to. I don't know if there's been any kind of indoctrination of this young man. But if all he's heard his entire adult life for the last 2 years, not to include his teenage years in high school, is Orange Man bad, Orange Man Hitler, Orange Man Nazi, Orange Man white supremacist, Orange Man dictator, Orange Man needs to die. What is the appropriate follow-on reaction? I don't know. As far as someone like Joe Biden and other people in his party calling to lower the temperature, you've been the ones causing all of this. You and your political party, since its inception pre-Civil War, have sought to do nothing but divide this country, to soak the seeds of hate in all the animosity you can fervor. Your party is built on nothing but division and segregation and hate and animosity. I offer only their actions as proof. That's all I offer. I am not claiming that the Republican Party is perfect. But what I'm saying is, if the hypocrisy wasn't already obvious, it's belligerently obvious now. Because there was a failed attempt on Donald Trump, you try to take the high road that you've been ignoring for so long to try to lower the temperature, because you realize that moment in history could be the catalyst for igniting a civil war you will lose. Is that what I want? Hell no. Hell no. I don't want to be shooting at my neighbors. I don't want to be killing my kids' friends' parents. I don't want that at all. But you're trying to unring a bell you've been ringing for the last, I don't know, almost 16 years, going all the way back to Obama. Obama had the first opportunity to start to try to lower the temperature in the country when it comes to racially sensitive issues, but instead he steered into it and he threw gasoline on it. And then everybody else just followed suit. Now all of a sudden, oh, hey, we need to settle down. You first. You settle the fuck down, because you're the ones directly responsible for all of this. And any and all actions that result because of it are your fault. When you keep shaming white people for being white, when you keep shaming heterosexuals for being heterosexual, when you keep shaming males for being males, when you push people into a corner, fight or flight. So no, you don't get to say lower the temperature, cool things down. All right, you can go fuck yourself. On the last thing I want to say before I hit an hour-long mark, Zachary Levi, who I adore and think is wildly entertaining, took to Instagram the other day to basically promote Robert Kennedy. However, I listened very carefully, and he expressed his opinion and his reasons why he wants to vote and why he thinks others should. But he also said you have to do what you think is right. You have to vote for who you think is best. And he stated in his opinion, he doesn't think Trump or Biden is the best candidate. Long story short, the way he presented himself is one that I can get behind, is one that I can approve of, and one that I can agree with. I may not agree with his candidate. I may not like his candidate. But the way he presented himself as a celebrity is one that I can approve of. And that's about all I will say for that. Other than that, again, for those of you that did leave comments, I appreciate it. Andra, always a pleasure. If you do leave a comment, I do promise to read, react, and respond to them out loud. But I'd also like to hear from you. I'd like to hear what you think, because I'm very curious what the agenda is. I think the power brokers that are playing chess and are looking 17 moves ahead, I'd like to know what you think their agenda is. I honestly think that they want to get things to the point of perhaps maybe another civil war, whether that allows for martial law or that allows for, Caesar to march on Rome or whatever the case may be. I think there's an intelligent design at play that's being carried out and being manipulated through the people, because if you just look at basic conflict theory and groupthink from introduction to sociology, when people congregate into groups, the collective IQ goes down and we're manipulatable, we're malleable. So just a little food for thought. I'd love to hear from you. Once again, if you're still here, thanks. You're awesome. Be safe out there. Take care of each other.